All right, mikesmastermind.com. All right, so I want to just quickly share, and this is really a special share, almost like you could say, really in the way of being present and thinking about my quote unquote pseudo philosophy of life. Um, my inspiration is sort of to evolve. I was always confronted by one challenge in my life, and that was, you could say number one, never really aspiring to becoming the person that you thought you could be or would be or dreamed and imagined, right? So it fell short in a certain way, a certain level that affects the dimension or the world that we're living in, right? I call Weltschloss, German word Weltschloss. The two I put together means world dwelling. And I talk about it from an ontological standpoint, examining the quality of the way that we're being, and involves sort of something saying, well, what would be the ideal philosophy if we could contemplate consciousness to it? Wow, we're suddenly really tuned and we're having a really great connection again. What's the quality of what that's like? How would things have to be different or change? And once you're past that, or you got it, you're now present to something else. And this is what the Weltschloss reveals. It's taken from a longer German word called Erschlossenheit, which literally means having the knowledge or recognition, the realization of things as something becomes present to you. It's really, now look, if you're German and you know the language, maybe my translation of it is not quite right. But in philosophy, the term is called disclosure. And uh, it's a certain levels of disclosure as one is able to feel comfortable in oneself to disclose what it is your truth. I so elegantly would like to tell you mine, but you already kind of know it, don't you? If you have any sense of me whatsoever. So to me, it's ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment. And why? Because if I fall short, man, it seems like the Weltschloss, the world we're dwelling in, there is sort of an impedance effect, some cause and effect karma. It's sort of like, well, boy, you're not going to get there. You acting like that. Sort of like, yeah, it's obviously not working. So you change mental manipulation into sort of like, well, I got to kind of give it all up, let it go. Because whatever it was that ensnared my mind and imagination, it's cost me. Now you could say the buoyancy of the Weltschloss that's going to sort of make you float and cause things to come more into balance and harmony. Just sort of let it go, right? Because it's been a weight on you. And it's really kind of a lesson that's waiting for you to get it. So this Weltschloss, this Erschlossenheit, the realization of the realization, it can be appreciation. Uh, it's a revelation, right? But it's not just watching it as a projection or a movie. It's something that's unfolding. That in its deeper realization, it's just. I mean, for me, it's always an allowing this to sort of just be open with you, right, or anybody, and it's okay. It's unconsequential in the sense that I'm not going to say anything wrong, and certainly want to be cautious and conscious of whatever my TWA, my thoughts, words, and actions are, because what it is they represent is sort of this inner refinement of my ultra being with you. And really, to be honest, Jay, you are the inspiration for this because I was at that wall. It's like, well, it's the precipice. How do I get across it without trying to trick it, manipulate it, knock it down? Yeah, you want to get through it. So what would be the most endearing, enlightened way? So you got to work on yourself, right? You got to let it go to the degree it's like, well, what would it take? It's not just the coming together of ideas, the Weltschloss, right? World and dwelling, and then having this recognition, this Erschlossenheit, and what's also called, I call it an irk, sort of like, aha, it's like, I could have had a V8, but you do because you got it. It's not like, gee, we blew it in the past, or we've been so inadequate up to this point. It's sort of, you let it go, it's like everything seems to be fine. And it's a dimension now that sort of, because of its buoyancy, it's allowing sort of an even keel level for us both to, for all of us to equally engage. It's very egalitarian and it's excellent, really, right? Because it's representing enlightenment and in a way that we could, I don't know, modify it, but study it and model it. Like, what's the most excellent qualities of this? We're able to sort of duplicate it in our own way of ultra being present and to practice. And it's nothing more than just being attuned to how I am being. And this is a reflection of my thoughts, right? What am I thinking? The quality of the words that I'm using and the way I'm acting. What am I actualizing, showing up? So I would be aware a bit my thoughts, words, and actions of my impacts because how I'm being present. So, you know, back in the day when I used to travel a lot, promoting seminars on the road, and stay at whatever. Sometimes it was pretty nice places. Other times we were very dinky in the Slosh as far as the motel that we were dwelling in, and how noisy it might have been. And just knowing at 3 o'clock in the morning, talking loud in the hall, that people wouldn't have the sensibility that other people are sleeping. You can hear through those doors. When you're fighting in the hall, or you're playing stereo really loud in the associated room. You never been in that experience before? It's like, oh man, you're missing something, man. You got to get one of those books that called Die of Hotels and travel around the country for a little bit and live that life, right? I mean, if you're not living the life, how are you getting this stuff? All right. So coming back to center, this whole concept, I'm calling a self-liberation movement, and I'm not the originator of the term. Guy Finley, and you could also say Krishnamurti and Vernon Howard, who was Guy Finley's teacher, are all sort of representations of this ability to sort of transcend that lower level of Welt slosh, the world we're dwelling in, that sort of keeps people sort of stuck. And maybe they really are sort of divisive in their thinking, or just have a really negative attitude, that we don't become one of those people. And if you were, you shake it off because it was the past. And now we evolve something that becomes a practice to help others shake it off as well, without getting so involved in their lives that we're taking on their karma or debt, or weirdness of where I'm going to have to sort of do a fast, or 15-week cleanse, or at least an energy shower, because I should have never had said that. I should have never gone in that person's space without asking permission. I said the wrong thing. No, those things are really of the past. It's sort of a new elegance that makes itself egalitarianism present, and it really is an associated way of ultra being. So UBE3, the formula, ultra being, an excellent example of enlightenment, is sort of the way. It's sort of the formula I came up with, sort of like a mix of a recipe that, by studying and modeling and divining these different ideas that I'm talking about in the next recording, talking about awareness, and having sort of a sense of, not only am I aware of my thoughts, words, and actions, I have some associated feeling to the world that I'm in with you, and I want to examine the quality of how we're dwelling in it. Is there a way that we can improve the world we're in based on how we're dwelling in it? Yeah, it's definitely a philosophical question worth exploring. It has sociological dimensions. Definitely should be part of the social sciences, right? Maybe even on social media, if you can post this. So Mike's Mastermind is about this. I kind of explore these different ideas and thoughts. And that. I'm an egocentric genius of any sort, thinking like, oh yeah, I got it. I have something, and it's valuable, I think, and it's pristine enough to be shared, and it's all about being present. So that's the formula, UBE3. The quality of how I'm ultra being present. Am I loving? Am I caring? Am I listening? Am I really attuned? And am I empty of an agenda or anything else that I could be conscious that I'm aware I'm projecting through my TWA, the quality of my thoughts, words, actions, and not being like, sort of a pastry chef layering over with more frosting and whipped cream and a cherry on top. Yeah, why not? But it's not window dressing. It's addressing the moment. And from this perspective, it's pristine, or as I'll talk about a little bit in the next recording, what I call genuinosity, where a person is so genuine and so real, it's just lovingly present. You sense it, you know it, it's clean, and it's pristine. And in this level of appreciation, and just having that you're present to this, you've been given a gift, right? It's the present. And to have this associated feeling, it is appreciative, and you want to engage it in the most kind and loving manner possible, so you can have this experience where the most realized comes out of it, right? So it's a having, a being, sensing, feeling, right? And these things can be shared or talked about, and if nothing else, there's kind of a knowingness, because this is what the moment's providing. I call it a metasphere, sort of the atmosphere between us, like a social climate, but this atmosphere needs to be named, so I call it a metasphere. And I had that word before Meta, as Facebook's company. We all know about, this concept that, metaphorically speaking, things can come to represent certain things in a person's mind, and sort of catch it before it kind of hooks and gets people off on a tangent and they get all bent. We sort of have this empty awareness and go, oh, we're so beyond that, we've caught it. And we function copacetically on this level. And things could come to one's attention and perhaps needing addressing or worked out. it's done so in a very elegant manner, so it's proficient in the way that things just dissipate, they get resolved, and the solutions are whole brain, they're proper, good for it's the best solution possible, right? It's not necessarily give and take, although it could be, but there's a willingness, right? Yeah, I'll take a little bit, you give a little bit, I'll give a little bit, you take a little bit, whatever. As we learn and become more awakened to this is the arc and how I'm present to things in such a way that I get it. It's like an aha. Anyway, these are the things I talk about in mikesmastermind.com. And the next recording, because this is a preview for it, is to examine the level of awareness so that we could begin to evolve and sort of have a regular practice in having a practice, practicing this presentness. And this is the Gedenken, the thought experiment, and the whole recording is this, and you'll get it when it wraps up. So I ask you if you could take at least a half hour. It's actually technically 35 minutes, but you can skip ahead a little bit because I always do my introductions like, whatever is going on in my life, sort of a sensibility, so I can come back to the recording and go, oh yeah, it's my digital journal. But if in fact there's anything here, it's something that I do want to evolve a practice. And it could be the formation of a true self-liberation movement that's fronted or backed by the Friendship Fellowship. These are just brainy dream ideas, sort of like, well, how could these ideas be associated and constitute something that not only is relevant and meaningful, which is what it ought to be in this dimension, but that people feel part of a community, or at least a forwarding effort that they can associate to and feel they're a member of. So as we connect, we'll create this community, and that's the goal. Really, it's sort of like, well, if we had sort of a cosmic purpose to why we went through all this, to get to this point in the here and now, and this point in our lives, this juncture of time, well, what could the ultimate outcome be? To me, it would be like, well, the lesson learned now is sort of like, wow, we could save a lot of stress and impetus for people to sort of like, get to, if we could call it a new level. And again, we can associate Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at that peak of the pyramid of self-actualization, but people do have to go through struggle and survival issues and things. And we all are on some level, whether we have this managed or not. There could be something on the inside or vestibular, right, that we have a gut feeling that, there's something more, something beyond that you'd like to achieve or reach or experience. And to me, it's the transcendence of ego, to where I can just be simply conscious and open to you. And I'm really this new revelatory sort of person that's just your best friend and you associate greatly with, because it's so genuosity is like, wow, it's impeccable. Person's coming from their heart, they're truthful, they transform, really, man. It's not the dude I used to know, man. This dude is like brand new, something. To be pristine in this regard is a representation of self-liberation. And so, yeah, it's an art, it's a work, and a self-liberation movement would be a cool thing to come together on and go like, wow, we did this, or initiated it and started something that by being, Ultra being an excellent example of enlightenment, what else could you ask? What else would be required? Well, that would be the question to explore, right? And done so in a whole brain, egalitarian equilibrium manner, right? It's really fair, it's just, and all sides are considered, and just wonderful. That's how we wreck the old paradigm. I got a whole talk about the RECK formula, WRECK. Search for it on Mike's Mastermind somewhere, you'll find it. But anyway, this next recording, it's a bit long, so if you can take a half hour where you're going to be uninterrupted, turn off that social media on the phone, or other than the recording, listening to it. Thank you in advance. I leave you with this to think about, or the TWA, to, it's your flight, that we could spark something that not only attributes to the quality of our relationship, that we've evolved something that can become a template or a model, such as lovingconversations.com, like how to have a more loving conversations. And I'm talking about those really great conversations you just love. You live for them because it's that great quality that I have with you, right? Or we could say had. Well, we have it right now, that we would have a template that we could evolve and share with people. So it's best practices. And as other people experience and contribute to this, we've created a movement among ourselves to have a bit more enlightened lovingconversations.com, communityconversations.com, that sort of talk about social issues but elevate the level of consciousness of the conversation. It's a good goal. Why not? What else would there be? So there's self-liberation movement, the Friendship Fellowship, and at the core we represent an ultra being philosophy, being all that we can be, exceeding really expectation because we want to give back, we want to contribute. I love community. I want to have that connection feeling that I once had with you, that this is something that we can continue. So by reinitiating connection